Perfect. All right, so next is my novel. I chose to do the Leviathan. I know you guys are kind of watching me like read this book, and you guys are like, "What? Matt reads?" But yes, this is a book that I really got into. I have read the trilogy. This book and the trilogy is written by Scott Westerfeld, and it is illustrated by Keith Thompson. Other books that are read by Westerfield include the Uglies books. It's like Uglies, Pretties. It's a list back here. Specials and Extras are the other ones. And then his newest book, from what I know of, is called Afterworld, and it seems like a very interesting concept. I didn't read it, of course. Then there's the next books in the Leviathan trilogy. Behemoth is the second one. Unfortunately, I don't have the third one, but I did read it. So cool names that he gives them: Leviathan, Behemoth, all gigantic creatures. For these books, I would recommend them for slightly older audiences, probably like grade 7 and up, because there are some concepts and people that you probably don't learn about. Like, it talks about Darwinism, and that's kind of a little more higher up thing to learn about. This book is good for social studies and a bit of science because of the Darwinism, and it kind of goes over the concepts and some things that Darwin researched. And then there's excellent social studies because it reflects and it's changed up a bit. Like, this is a historical fiction book, so it actually kind of goes through the events that happened in World War I with a bit of a twist. But it's got the real people. Like, it talks about the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the conflict between Churchill and the Ottoman Empire about seizing a ship. So it's got really good ideas that can be discussed in a classroom. So Leviathan is based on World War I, and it continues out through Behemoth and Goliath.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So some good things that got me really intrigued in the book is that it's got the historical fiction aspect, so it had the real events, but then it has some a twist to it. At the end of the book, it has something called Afterword, and so it talks about, like, the author talks about what is real in her book, like the actual things, and then what she incorporated it to make an interesting story. So part of the book is on the Prince of Austria-Hungary, so the son of the Archduke, but this character actually didn't exist, but they actually had like 3 kids, but they couldn't really incorporate all of them, so she chose for them to have only one son. And then it also has a kind of a steampunk and a Darwinist approach on it. So the Allied forces, so you have Britain, France, and Russia, they all have fabricated creatures. So the book, there's like creatures that basically the Leviathan is a whale blimp sort of thing. So, and it has they have bats that consume little metal pieces like called fletchets, and they drop them on enemy aircrafts. So it's kind of cool what she does with it. And then the Triple Entente, so Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, have a steampunk sort of setting. So they have these big walking machines, steam-powered, and it's really cool what she incorporates into it. So I can show you some of the creatures that she... So another great thing is that they show pictures about some of the things. So this is what the Leviathan is. That's what the whale blimp is, basically. And then for the Triple Entente, they have these huge walkers that have like superior firepower and steam powered. So it's really cool. And throughout the book, like I was just showing you, they have pictures with captions at the bottom that kind of give you a general setting and like a visual about how these walkers and these fabrications look. So, and the other thing that's cool about the book is that it has two different character perspectives. So the first one is the prince of the Austrian Hungary, and then the other aspect is taken from a British girl who disguises herself as a guy to get into the British Air Force. So, and so each character gets 2 chapters, and then it switches over to the other, and they start off separate, and then getting to the end of the book, they connect. So it is really cool. So with the time that I have left, I'm going to read sort of the beginning of the book. So this one is going to start off with Alec.
Before you start, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Perfect. All right. So Alec is the Prince of Austria-Hungary, and so the book starts with him. And then the girl's name is Daryn, spelled Deryn. But she goes by the name of Dylan to give her the guy's thing. So let's begin. Chapter 1. The Austrian horses glinted in the moonlight, their riders standing tall in the saddle, swords raised. Behind them, 2 ranks of diesel-powered walking machines stood ready to fire, cannon aimed over the heads of the cavalry. A Zeppelin scouted no man's land at the center of the battlefield, its metal skin sparkling. The French and British infantry crouched behind their fortifications, a letter opener, an ink jar, and a line of fountain pens, knowing they stood no chance against the might of the Austrian-Hungary Empire. But a row of Darwinist monsters loomed behind them, ready to devour any who dared retreat. The attack had almost begun when Prince Alexander thought he heard someone outside the door. He took a guilty step towards his bed, then froze in place, listening hard. Trees stirred in a soft breeze outside, but otherwise the night was silent. Mother and father were in Sarajevo. After all, the servants wouldn't dare disturb his sleep. Alec turned back to his desk and began to move the cavalry forward, grinning as the battle neared its climax. The Austrian walkers had completed their bombardment, and it was time for the tin horses to finish off the woefully outnumbered French. It had taken all night to set up the attack, using an imperial tactics manual borrowed from his father's study. It seemed only fair that Alec would have some fun while his parents were off watching military maneuvers. He'd begged them to be taken along to see the mustered ranks of soldiers striding past in real life, to feel the rumble of massed fighting machines through the soles of his boots. It was his mother, of course, who had forbidden it. His studies were more important than parades, as she called them. She didn't understand that military exercises had more to teach him than musty old tutors and their books. One day soon, Alec might be piloting one of these machines. War was coming after all. Everyone said so. The last 10 cavalry unit had just crashed into the French lines when the soft sound came from the hallway again, jingling like a ring of keys. Alec turned, peering at the gap beneath his bedchamber's double doors. Shadows shifted along the sliver moonlight, and he heard the hiss of whispers. Someone was right outside. Silent and barefoot, he swiftly crossed the old marble floor, sliding into bed just as the door creaked open. Alec narrowed his eyes to a slit, wondering which of his servants was checking on him. Moonlight spilled into the room, making the tin soldiers on the desk glitter. Someone slipped inside, gracefully and dead silent. The figure paused, staring at Alec for a moment, and then crept toward his dresser. Alec heard the wooden rasp of a drawer sliding open. His heart raced. None of his servants would dare steal from him. But what if the intruder were something worse than a thief? His father's warnings echoed in his ear. You have had enemies from the day you were born. I'm going to stop right there. Leaving you guys with a cliffhanger. So that is the start of Leviathan. Hope you guys are intrigued by it. Hope you guys think about reading the book. And that concludes my my book talk.